project. As we've seen over these meetings, the designs are improving because of your feedback, so thank you. In September, the school board will vote on the schematic designs, and the chairs are listening throughout the process because at that September 8th school board meeting, the chairs will represent the BLPC and the PFRC, sharing feedback on the schematic design. Spearheading that feedback are BLPC Chair Ted Black, who we will hear from shortly, and Tenley Peterson, who is filling in as the PFRC Chair for meetings 5 and 6. PFRC Chair Sarah Steinberger recently welcomed a baby and will return in the fall. Congratulations to her, and thank you both to Tenley and to Ted for your participation. Also, thank you goes out to Takis Karantanis, our County Board Liaison, for participating in these meetings as well. And meetings 4, 5, and 6 are focused on the schematic design. So as you saw in the advanced materials, we continue to use the PFRC's principles of civic design to frame the BLPC and PFRC engagement. And as we go through this process, you'll notice that in addition to Tenley filling in as PFRC Chair, we have a new Chief of Staff in APS, Stephen Linkus. The Chief of Staff's office is responsible for overseeing this engagement process, and we will continue to push forward so we can make that December 2025 deadline. Stephen will be the person stepping in and driving that bus, making sure we hit our stops and ultimately our final destination, which is the completion of this process for the Career Center. And I must say, seeing firsthand, Stephen's jumped right in since joining APS in July and has immersed himself in the inner workings of how this process works. He's asked a lot of questions, a lot of critical questions, and the answers provided have already given him a great grasp of where we have been with the Career Center site and where we are going. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Just want to say it's great to be here in Arlington, Virginia. Being someone who used to live in Texas, when I took a job out here, a number of people said, "Oh, you're back in Texas?" And I said, "No, I'm near DC. I'm in Virginia and extremely excited to be there." So thank you to the warm welcome to everyone. And it's been great getting involved with everything. As you look at tonight's agenda, you see a number of things on there. The bulk of the time tonight, we're going to be spending it in breakout groups. The reason for this is because we want to get feedback on the initial schematic design. It's very important that we get this information so that we can move forward and continue to make our meetings as positive as possible and actually get to the end results that everybody wants, so that we give the facility of the community that it deserves and that it needs. After reviewing the agenda, there's a couple things I'd like to talk to you about. Please note that we'll be recording this meeting and that all breakout sessions will also be recorded. They'll be available in the next few days. If you need to communicate with somebody, please use the chat button so you can communicate with members of staff. We're going to be keeping time to maintain efficiency during this because we do have a 2-hour bubble and we don't want to keep people late. We're not going to answer questions that are not within this scope of work tonight. Those need to be referred to our email, which is engage@apsva.us, and those answers are going to be posted this Friday. Please remember this is a public process, and we want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. All resources are going to be on the Engage webpage. BLPC and the PFRC members, they're going to use this so we can gather input and actually be your representatives and make sure that they are taking your voice forward. We're asking the community to use the same resource and use these tools to give us feedback. Lastly, we know it's summer. The majority of people have had a chance to take a vacation, and hopefully you've had a chance to do something fun and hang out with family, or even if it's just relax for a few days. So we know we have some people that have missed some meetings. So if you've missed a meeting, we still want you to be part of this. Please come back and be part of what we're doing and the work we are part of. As I stated earlier, everything you need to provide feedback, including the discussion guide, as well as responses, will be posted on the engage@apsva.us. Please complete this after the meeting, and please know that you have 2 weeks to get this done. We're going to take your input from this meeting through August 11th. At this point, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our chair of the BLPC, Mr. Ted Black.
Thank you, Stephen, and welcome to the process and to this Arlington versus the Texas Arlington. So we're going to do a little something different for you for the next few minutes. We're going to share some information that we got from one of our key stakeholder groups, and that's the students. At one of our planning meetings, we had a request that if the opportunity came up, while we're getting great feedback and representation from our members, BLPC, can we broaden that? Can we get more student participation? And so the planning team jumped right into that. Great collaboration between the APS staff, the county staff, the Career Center staff. Our principal there, Margaret Chung, reached out to students, and on July 7th, we actually brought them back, some volunteers, to the Career Center, and we had an in-person meeting. We used some modified materials that you had in meeting 4 with the similar questions. We had a discussion with them to get what their feedback was on where we are and what they think of the new Career Center. The good news is that they really affirmed the direction that you, as committee members, have been taking the design and helping the design team to turn this into a welcoming and great new Career Center. So I'm going to go through with the different questions that we asked you and that we asked them, and just give you a sense of what they were telling us. One of the first things, if you ever questioned, do they notice the environment and the facilities that they have? And that very first thing that you see on their likes is, yes, they do. Because one of the things that they were very excited about is that this gives them a space that's on par with the other high schools. So they notice what they're getting and what they're not. And so they appreciated that. They also were very appreciative and very excited about the open spaces and the green spaces that this design and this landscape gives them. They were excited about having places to go out, both for personal and social time, but also, more importantly, for outdoor learning and reconfiguring spaces so that you may have multiple classes out doing outdoor learning. And also that it could be reconfigured where they could have social time or time alone. They liked having all of the prospect of having trees and more green space around that they can go into. It was all very positive about the field. They also were very positive about facing on to Walter Reed. They're on the interior of the campus now, and this gives them a face out into it. And so that was exciting to them. If you go to the next slide, please, Lisa. For the building itself, again, that it's on par with the other high schools. They appreciated the way that it's masked. They appreciated the way that it's stepped down and has the larger part of the building, away from the neighborhood. They understood that, the multiple levels. We had the terraces, and the idea of going out and having classroom potentially, or even time alone out in those spaces and being outside. They also, and this is something that we don't necessarily appreciate, but the fact that they have so many windows, that they will have so much natural light, they very much appreciated that. That's something that they're looking forward to, the students having that kind of use in the facility versus where they are now. If you go to the next slide, please. When we talked to them about the parking lot, of course, one of the first things they asked, well, can students park in the parking garage? And they understand that it'll be for staff, for visitors, and so they accept that, and that they'll have to find parking on the street. They like the garage. One of the things they offered is, well, are there ways to differentiate floors, by programs or things that are going on at the Career Center? Could the students participate in maybe decorating it or making it a more inviting place than what some people vision with a parking garage? So they had some good ideas about that. One of the other things, if you go to the next slide, that's related to that, they accepted having staff there. They also think that if staff has dedicated parking in the garage, then we need to be sure that they're using it, because the concern was, well, they don't want to compete with staff in parking in the neighborhood or along curbside with the spaces that are available. So, that's one of those insights that, maybe we wouldn't have thought of, but is something that is important for the as we move forward, and the staff took note of that. They don't really use the interior of the campus so much now. They're looking forward to doing that, but they also think that there needs to be good circulation around the site, and they don't use 9th Street. They look at 9th Street as more of an alley. It's not inviting to them, so they don't like that. They were concerned and lifted the issue of making sure there's safety at an intersection, making sure that's right there at the main entrance to the facility. Crossing guard potentially there for making sure there's safety. So they were raising those different things that are important to us and to them, and that we've talked about in different ways along the process. So the important thing I wanted to lift up for you is that they really affirmed where we're going with it. One of the things I'll also share that is outside the scope, and this is outside the scope, but it shows that they're sensitive and that they do notice their environment. They said, they enjoyed the idea of light in the new building, but when we do the refresh for the current building, can we do whatever we can to make sure that they get light in the building and that they get to enjoy that same kind of thing? So again, something to be proud of, and that they're sensitive that not only are they getting something, but they want to pass that on to those who are inheriting what they have now. Hope this informs you that we're on a good path and helps you with your discussion for the rest of the evening. So Stephen, thank you very much.
Ted, thank you for sharing the student input. We know it's very important, as all of us have attended schools, and this is where they'll be going to school. And as was mentioned, this will be the legacy for future students. So very excited to hear what they had to say. I also want to send some thank yous to our staff who's working behind the scenes to make this happen, our partners with the county, our APS staff who's going to be leading groups and note taking, our chairs, and also our school board liaison. Thank you very much. Something to remember is that our objective tonight is to gather feedback on the revised schematic design. I hope you had a chance to look at this previously, and we definitely want to make this facility work within the neighborhood for the students and for the staff at the school. A reminder, you will have access to these illustrations. They're there to stimulate thought so that we can have tremendous discussion and dialogue when you guys break into groups, and then we can get that shared back with us when we do after the breakout sessions. During the breakout groups, please understand the facilitators and note takers are not going to give opinions one way or the other. They're there to stimulate thinking and to ensure we're capturing your feedback. That feedback will then be gathered by us, and we will get that back out to everybody. The groups are made small purposely so that everyone who's on the BLPC and the PFRC has an opportunity to participate and be represented. We may have other community members that have joined us. If this is the case, they can use a discussion guide posted on the ACC project group project webpage, and they're going to be able to give feedback through that. At this time, I want to take the opportunity to introduce Jeff Chambers from DNC, who provide an overview to frame the breakout discussion.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. I want to again thank everybody for improving the process in the project and with your input. I can assure you that the design team as well as design and construction, have taken all of it as constructive criticism and are utilizing the materials that you provide. So you are being heard, and we are thoughtful with everything that you do provide to us. Tonight's discussion questions were included in the advanced materials. I want to make sure that within those slides you will see some numbers or page numbers which reference the sections in the advanced information that you can utilize to look back on if you have access to that as you're discussing and having the conversation on each of those items, to give you a little bit more context should you not remember what you have reviewed over the weekend, to provide more context on those specific questions. I think the images that you reviewed are improved based on the input from the group using the Meeting 4 discussion guide. I think there were a lot of things that were requested and for us to look at, and as we advance the design, and tonight we are focusing on the site and landscape design. That includes illustrated site circulation scenarios. We do have some phasing shown on what we're looking at the campus phasing. The Arlington Career Center building design being refined with the massing. And we're looking at an initial selection of materials, continuing to develop that. And one thing that was really asked for is what does the north and west sides of the building look like? So we are provided those renderings so that people can get a better look at what we're thinking in this schematic phase. Also the garage function and what we're thinking about with regard to facade treatment. Nothing is finalized till we build it. So we're looking at all of that, and we're anxious to hear some of the information that you share with us tonight. Where applicable, we've addressed other items and questions and concerns from the committee. And at the last meeting, there were a lot of questions that were raised through the additional time that we had following the meeting. And I want to emphasize again that your questions are important and were looked at and discussed by multiple people, including the design team, design and construction, and everybody else involved in the project. And since that last 2-hour meeting, we did include things in frequently asked questions, the FAQs, and make sure that you can review them, because Meeting 4 did generate a multitude of FAQs. If you look at the access to Daryl Johnson's July 22nd email, it did include link to the schematic design FAQs and the June BLPC PFRC schematic design questions. Also, as you do move into your breakout groups, Steve Stricker, who's the project manager on this project, and I will be circulating among the groups, and if you have questions, feel free to ask. We'll answer as we can. And I just want everybody to remember that we are still in schematic design. Nothing is final. We've got a long process to go through, including the use permit and creating the documents to build the building. We've got at least a year of process to go, but I want to make sure that you know that you're heard, and we want to make sure that you put your questions out to us, either in the discussion groups or in the FAQs after, if you think of something following this meeting tonight. So I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen. And again, thank you, Stephen, and welcome to APS.
Thank you very much. And just getting back to the work that we're going to be engaging in. So I know you've had the opportunity to read the materials in advance, and please note that we are changing the way that we access the breakout groups. Just in talking to the team, we do know there were some issues previously, so we're doing our best with this. We think we've got a much smoother process to get you in groups and to really get that dialogue facilitated. So know that this table can be used to find your breakout groups. So we have it listed, and that's who's going to be in each group. In the chat, you'll be able to click on the direct Microsoft Teams link to the appropriate session. So please look at that so you'll know which link to click on. Those of you, if there are anyone that's calling in on a phone, you may also dial into the breakout group using the phone number and conference code provided either on the screen or in the advanced materials sent to you. If you're currently not assigned to a group, when we tell people to go ahead and go, just hang back. We'll guide you and we'll get you set up and get you put into the appropriate group. So please note right now we're at 7:22, so we're a couple minutes ahead of schedule, but we will be returning to the general session at 8:35 so we can have a share out. So at this time, please go into your breakout groups. Thank you very much. Tonight we're staying on cue, so thank you to everyone for doing that. Once again, just thank you for the dialogue. I had opportunities to visit almost every group and saw the engagement. So very much thank you for the discussion, the thoughtful questions, and the input that you've given us. So just as we're moving forward, I just want to remind everyone that the notes are going to be compiled and they will be posted on the website. These are going to be used as we prepare for our next set of meetings, and of course the next meeting at the end of August. At this point, we're going to need each group to report out. What we're asking of each group is to share 3 key things so that all BLPC and PFRC members have a shared understanding of the opportunities and concerns for the ACC project as discussed in the breakout groups. Okay, note takers, if you could please listen to the reports. We'll look for you to take down the top issues. One of the things I will ask though is from going to the different groups, there were some themes that were repeated in each group, and that's okay. But if you hear the group before you mention that theme, if you could just leave that one off and then mention something else. We want to collect as much information as possible. We do know that some of the information or some of the ideas or information shared is going to be similar, but we want to get a variety of ideas as we move forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some time for each group to share out their 3 things. And usually you would hear at this time, you'd hear someone say, let's start with group A, but we're going to flip it around tonight. And we're actually going to start with group F. So if group F has someone ready to report out, I'm going to go ahead and mute the mic. I'll let you report out your 3 key things from the group, and I will be quiet as you do so. No, you don't have to all jump at once. Or even if the facilitator or the note taker would be willing to share out, that would work as well.
And Clint, you want to share some of the things that you had captured?
Sure. I apologize. I couldn't. I'm working on 2 different computers, so give me a second here. All right. Going first makes it easier. All right, so one of the big things was one of the big issues, was the idea that there will be ample play space for the elementary schools and the spacing of the playground sizes, and wanting to make sure that there is ample space in the planning for the elementary schools.
Okay, thank you for those ideas. Does anyone else from Group F want to share anything else out? If
I
not,
can give more than one. I wasn't sure if I should give more than one. Okay, I was sorry.
you can give 3. Yes.
Absolutely. So also we had big consideration for rodent prevention with the planting areas along the buildings. So thoughts that, if you plant plants that are a little too bushy or like wide out or too tall, you basically create a harbor for rodents, which I'm sure none of us want to do. And then also overall, we love the increase in trees. And then just making sure that and we kind of talked with Jeff about this, but we were talking about how the planting of the trees as a border around the area could basically making sure that it isn't too narrow and that it kind of coincides with permit laws for the sidewalks and everything else. But Jeff kind of taught us through that one as well. But yeah, that's it for the building design.
Clint, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing out for Group F. If we can now have Group E, we could have someone share out, please. 3 key ideas.
Awesome, thank you. I'm representing Group E. We really talked about a robust conversation about the preservation of the existing trees and making sure that we're really considering that, because it does take a long time for the trees to establish canopy. So definitely had a robust conversation around that. And then the consideration of the neighbors in terms of the parking garage, like different side has affects different streets. And so really considering what street in terms of the aesthetic. And finally, we talked about APS's commitment and values in terms of the maintenance of all the green space, the plants and the trees, and making sure that we are, we had the conversation about if we plant these, making sure that we're maintaining them as well.
Liana, thank you for sharing those ideas and that information. That's Group B. Now, if we could please move on to Group D.
Hello. So for Group D, there's a lot of discussion about circulation, especially circulation during arrival and dismissal. People want to see how the buses shown to scale, the amount of buses on the site, and where the buses will be located in proximity to where people who are dropping off and picking up, the car drop off and picking up. And then also where the students will be queuing before and after school, and if there's going to be any interaction or conflict with the vehicles. Another thing was ADA, accessibility between the buildings, but also from the parking garage. And then also if there will be enough ADA parking spaces in the garage on the ground level. And if not, will there be an elevator in the parking garage? And to make sure that there is enough ADA parking spaces, not only for the staff, but for any sort of visitors and programming that might happen. And then also there were some questions about the exterior material, the materials on the exterior of the site. Somebody mentioned that they like, for safety reasons, they like the transparent or the see-through materials on the garage at the stairwell location. And also there was questions about what the materials look like, the variety, colors, and possibly using colors associated with the school or the school's mascot reflected in the exterior materials.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And it's great to hear the variety of things that were discussed in each group. Group C, if you could please share.
So Group C appreciated the trees being sort of a defining feature of the border of the campus itself, appreciated the intentionality of the green space areas for drainage, as mentioned in the advanced materials. Another thing that came up was whether or not the multi-purpose fields would be completed before the parking, just sort of a general want of clarity of phasing. Another thing that came up was an appreciation for the effort being made to make the garage not look so much like a garage. It's very pleasing to the eye, according to our group, and colorful. We also appreciated the visible staircase, which provides a sense of security, which is preferred to a dark, not as well lit staircase. Those are our main 3.
Oh, and Emma, this is Chris. I would also add, we had a lot of discussion about the metal panels on the building. Some concerns about it being more of a building type more associated with commercial buildings, and whether that it was really following the civic design principles of sort of neighborhood context. So just wanted to make that one too. Thank you.
Thank you, Group C. Group B, you'd be willing to share?
Good evening, everybody. This is Laura, Group B. So a lot of the things have been mentioned already. We had a lot of overlapping comments at this point, but I will say there were some notes about the entrance to the main building, and they're not feeling like there is a significant welcoming point or directionality to where folks should be entering the building, and this being the jewel of the pike and how the building is oriented. There was a lot of talk about either using color or some sort of verticality to some of the corners so that it's more visible walking down Walter Reed. There were a lot of notes about The playing fields, phasing of the playing fields, and what the playing fields are made of. There were notes about that the synthetic turf may not be as comfortable to sit on, but the ultimate Frisbee players actually prefer it in how they utilize the field in all different weather conditions. So there's a lot of talk about what that material is going to look like, and phasing and size of those fields. Parking garage, discussions on biophilic design, and that there was a general preference to have this actually be more living and more physically green than necessarily a panel representing green or textures on it. So maybe something a little bit more simplified and more green and more planting in that area. And also some questions about the utilities here. So in the renderings, there's a little bit of discrepancy with what's being shown in planting and where utilities currently are. So I think some clarification and clarity moving forward on that will be good. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Are we on Group B, or did I get mixed up and we're on Group A?
I was Group B, so I think you're on A.
Awesome, thank you. So Group A, if you can close out our debrief. So the floor is yours.
Sure, this is Tenley Peterson. So a lot of what we discussed has been covered. My group was very positive about the massing and the density. They really liked the steps and how it brings it down to the neighborhood level nicely. They really liked the biophilia, the terraces. They're hoping that we can protect as many mature trees around the buildings, and also had a great suggestion about maybe putting terraces on the west side as well as the ones on the east side. Second issue or topic discussed was the material and color of the building. Interested to know more about the color palette. They did not like the proposed colors of some of the metal that were bright yellow. They like it better when a facade is broken up with different textures and colors, not just a monolith, and are hoping to have some options other than just brick be considered for the final building. And third, we also discussed the garage. There's a desire to have the garage look as good as possible from all vantage points. In particular, making sure the corner of 9th and Highland is as attractive as possible, since corners tend to be, really important real estate. Looking at the kind of little alley that's going to go into the future MPSA, making sure there's trees surrounding the parking garage on that little alley as well. Looking at the bike parking, and overall, there was just the sense that we don't want this to be lipstick on a pig. We want this to be a genuinely attractive building or space on the property. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you very, very much to Group A. Thank you to all the groups for sharing out information. The notes have been taken. We will be looking at this, and this will help us plan as we move forward. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tenley and Ted. So you can proceed at this time.
Sorry, my Teams froze and I was having trouble coming off of mute. So I just wanted to thank everyone for being part of the discussion tonight. If you have a question that wasn't addressed tonight, you can please send your question or comments to engage@apsva.us. A lot of the discussion tonight is going to be captured in the breakout session discussion guide, as well as follow-up questions and the FAQs. Responses are going to be posted on the Arlington Career Center project webpage on Fridays, so please check that each week to see if your questions have been addressed, and email engage@apsva.us if they haven't been. And I just want to remind you all that you all are representing groups that are directly impacted by this project. You are knowledgeable, you have great expertise, you care very much about the community and the schools, and we just want to thank you and recognize the work that you're contributing here tonight. You all are representing key stakeholders. and you're a conduit to the groups that you represent. And so it's important that we get your input as well as the group input. For tonight's discussion, there will be a guide that you can then take back to your commissions or committees or neighborhood civic associations, and share the information and have answers for questions that they may have. And please feel free to reach out to any of us if they have additional questions that weren't addressed, because we definitely want to make sure that you have the resources and the materials and the answers that you need to go back and let your commissions and your groups know what's happening with this great project. I think I'll turn it over to Ted now.
There we go. I was having the same problem. But I want to thank Tenley for stepping in and taking on the role that she's taken on, and taking the time on a summer night to be with us. And I think we've had some great discussion. I want to remind you, next meeting is going to be a little different. We're going to follow a little bit of the same format that we did preparing for the concept design. We'll separate the BLPC and the PFRC meetings, and it's an opportunity for Tenley and I as the chairs to hear again what you say about the project, where we have consensus, where there are areas of that need some more work, and then just the general sense of what kind of support there is for the project, so that we can convey that to the school board in September when they meet to consider it. And that's very important to them. So it's also very important to us that we get that, and we represent your stakeholders and you, and what's as appropriate. And we will do the best that we can to do that. You know, and if there are any issues, any concerns that you have, please let us know, and we will do our best to work with the core team to make adjustments, and hopefully we will continue to go on the same path, and I think we're on a good path. So with that, I will turn it back to Stephen.
Thank you very much. At this point, what I'd like to do is open it up for the community comments. Daryl, did we get anyone to sign up or to write anything in the chat? And what we did want you to know, if you wish to speak in the chat, add public comment with your name. We will give you up to 2 minutes. But Daryl, have you received any interest?
No, I haven't seen anyone put anything in. So we usually just wait a minute or two. I know for the last meeting, no one had wanted to speak and provide any public comments. So if anyone does, please feel free to put your name in the chat and we will follow up. And Nick, I just saw your question about when is the public feedback due? It is due on Thursday, August 11th.
Thank you for the question. All right, exercised a little wait time back from my teaching days. So since we don't have anyone who's going to be doing any public comment, just some reminders. The school board will review and act on the schematic design on September 8th and September 22nd. Our schedule for meeting dates, meeting 4 was June 22nd. I wasn't here at that time, so I wasn't able to attend, but was able to review things. Of course, tonight is meeting 5. And meeting 6 is lined up for August 31st. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and I'd like to thank everybody, and we look forward to working with you again later this summer. Have a great evening.